Hello and welcome, my name is Nate from Video Games Recon, and in this video we're going to compare the graphics of the PC version of The Division at ultra settings, as they currently stand, to the PlayStation 4 version of the game, and some general discussion on what will be the preferred platform for you, presuming you've already decided to get this game. So, let's get into it and discuss the graphics. Firstly, we're going to nerd out on how the footage was captured for any comparison sticklers out there. Okay, so both platforms were locked at 30 frames per second 1080p, in the case of the PC version by myself, and captured at 30 megabits per second with a H.264 codec for parity's sake. I get that the frame rate and resolution impacts on the graphical fidelity somewhat, but if you're running this game on ultra settings at 2K, 4K and or 60 frames per second, it's pretty much a full-blown conclusion what you think about the graphics and where you'll be playing this game, as you'd have at least one flagship graphics card like a 980 Ti or Titan X, which can cost twice as much as a console alone, so you probably only came here to scoff at the PS4 graphics in the first place. That aside, once captured I obviously edited the footage together to make this video and rendered it out again at 1080p 30 frames per second at 30 megabits per second and with the H.264 codec for as close a comparison as possible. And then said video, like all videos, will have had to suffer some YouTube compression. So not perfect for the viewer, but the best I can do aside from upping the bitrate and having some massive file sizes. Okay, nerdgasm over, let's talk about the difference in the graphics purely from an aesthetic point of view. First off, before we get started, all versions of the game look great. This is quite a pretty game, not the best I've ever seen, mind. I'd have to say Batman and The Order 1886 looks better, but either way The Division still looks great on all platforms. Is there however a difference? Yes, there is a somewhat notable difference, but only in comparison, as without actually comparing the two side by side it's very hard to notice. This is probably due to most games being essentially built for consoles, as that's where the real money is, and thus the Xbox One is the lowest common denominator in terms of hardware. So for the PC version, any visual enhancements will be an afterthought. That said, aside from the frame rate and resolution, which if you have a powerful enough card will definitely improve the visuals. Aside from this, the most noticeable improvement on PC are in terms of lighting, shadows, smoke, fire effects and the anti-aliasing to a degree. Again, not to say it's bad on console, but those improvements really help with the atmosphere and world building of the game. However, in terms of textures, it's very hard to tell the difference, and one would guess the textures are of the same quality. So, unless the PC version gets major graphical upgrades in the menu settings prior to release, the difference in graphics isn't that huge. It's definitely noticeable, but not a game changer, literally and figuratively, in my opinion. And speaking of graphical upgrades, let's talk about the infamous 2013-2014 graphical downgrade. So, do the maxed out graphics look as good as the E3 presentations? No. But to be fair, it's not too far off. Still, regardless, that said, I don't know why companies do this. It only ends up blowing up in their faces when they have to show their game later on down the road. And I don't see why they can't just let people with a powerful enough rig at least try to run the game at the 2013-2014 settings, should they wish to. Nevertheless, when companies do this, it sets a bad precedent and comes off like false advertising and a little shady if you ask me. But the difference on PC at least isn't as bad as everyone is making out. So, what platform should I play on? Let's boil it down to a few factors. First up, visuals. Although the general graphics are better on PC, it's not a big enough of a difference to make it a deal breaker for me. Next, resolution. Again, like I stated earlier, if you're playing at 2K or 4K, you're already at an enthusiast level, so are probably a card-carrying member of the so-called PC master race. So, kind of a moot point. And if you're on Xbox, the difference between 900p and 1080p is near impossible to notice unless you go looking for it. So again, a moot point. Frame rate. This for me is the biggest reason to consider going with the PC, as the difference in the way the game feels at 60 frames per second as opposed to 30 is by far the most significant factor for me. However, after playing on either platform for about an hour or so, you tend to forget the difference in frame rate and just focus on the game. Controls. Which control method do you enjoy the most? For me personally, I prefer a controller as I find it more comfortable, as although a mouse is usually more accurate for shooting games, I tend to get muscle strain when using a keyboard and mouse for more than a couple of hours at a time, whereas with a gamepad I could play pretty much all day without a worry. And I know you can plug a controller into your PC, but it never feels quite right with shooters when you do, as everyone else has a slight advantage in PvP and there's often no aim assist, which makes a gamepad feel a less desirable choice. Although this isn't a Twitch shooter, so playing with a pad on PC isn't that bad. Anywho, my point is, which control method do you prefer? Next, network. Obviously, if you're playing this on Steam or Uplay, then there is no cost to use the network. However, on Xbox and PlayStation, you have to pay a yearly subscription fee to be able to play online with your friends or other players, which is pretty much a must for this game. So if you're not already subscribed to either service, it would be considerably cheaper on PC. And finally, speaking of friends, this game is very much a game that is more fun with people, and although it has pretty good matchmaking, even with something like the Dark Zone, it's not the same as playing with friends. So, if you've answered more one way than the other, then your question has probably answered itself. If not, prioritise what is most important to you, be it visuals, resolution, frame rate, controls, network, or playing with friends. Personally, although my PC is considerably more powerful, I'm probably going to get The Division on the PS4, as although the visuals and particularly the frame rate are better on the PC, after about an hour of playing you forget one way or the other, so not really an issue. As for resolution, unless you have a monster card and a 4K monitor, it's pretty much 1080p across the board, so no difference there. As previously stated, I prefer a controller over a mouse and keyboard, and as for the network thing, that definitely sucks, but that's a gripe about console gaming for another video. And anyway, there's a good chance you're already subscribed to such a service. And finally, and probably more importantly, my friends list on PC is near non-existent, so for these reasons I'm probably going to go with PS4. If however it was a single player game and not so reliant on having teammates, I'd probably trade in all of the preferences for the frame rate, but as it stands it doesn't take priority over the other preferences discussed, so for me it's PS4 all the way. What about you? What do you think of The Division? Are you going to get it? If so, what platform will you play it on and why? Anywho, that was my comparison and thoughts on the Division PC version versus the PS4 version. If you would like to see my thoughts on the Division as a whole, there will be a link to said video on screen and in the description. So, this only leaves me to say if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe for more BS of a similar nature. Thank you and goodbye.